Faces dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down Here. It's cold and rainy in Atlanta. Hope you guys are staying warm and dry wherever you're at. Lots of things to get into on a Wall Pass Wednesday. We'll be taking your questions and thoughts throughout the show as well. Twitter, at Soccer Down Here. Twitch pitch, twitch.tv/Soccer Down Here. You can even email us, soccerdownhere@gmail.com. Let us know what's on your mind. I'm on Twitter at Longshoe. John is on Twitter at OSG Nelson, and I think he still needs follows because he can't make Twitter work because for 2 years now you've refused to unfollow people that are not following you back, and now you're limited to follows. And are you still in that boat, John?
Yes, I'm still in that boat.
Get a bigger boat, John. And Jarrett underscore Smith is crashing the party as well. What's up, Jarrett?
I've never heard a full explanation of why he.
I don't understand it. I don't get it. It's like,
did Twitter make special rules for John?
I think so. I mean, because of the different me's.
No. Stop. That has zero to do with anything, John. Yes, it has zero to do with anything. How many followers do you have on Twitter?
Let's see.
We're going to fix John's Twitter this morning. That's what we're going to do to start the show.
All right, so I have to get away from...
please, John, just take one of your awards and just take it down and beat someone over the head with it. Twitter.
You know?
All right, so if I was to change over to see... Okay.
What are you...
2,574 followers, and I'm following 5,000.
And you can't follow more people?
Nope.
Okay, that part I don't get.
And I don't either. That's my whole point in this.
Well, no, the whole point is first, if that's the problem. Because we can complain about the problem, and I can't follow more people. Wah, Twitter, help me. Oh, they're not going to help me. Wah, okay, nothing's happening. You got to do something about it. We're going to take action, John. You got to go through the people you're following.
I have been.
Well, obviously not, because you're still following the max. You got to go through and unnecessary follows, because we all do it. You know, we see somebody say something funny, we're like, yeah, I'm going to follow that person. And then they don't have any more good jokes. And you have to unfollow at some point. And if they're not going to follow you back, then yeah, you got to make room, John. And you also need people to follow you, which means you need to put out good Twitter content.
See, and that's the hook in all of this, is me putting out good Twitter content.
You are a content goldmine, John. Have you ever listened to the show, by the way?
Have I listened to the show while I'm an active participant or separately?
Either one. You come up with gold from time to time. You can drop that on the Twitters. You get the people following.
Well, okay.
I'm glad this is really helping. Let's move on. One day, John will figure out Twitter. One day. I got nothing. Anyway.
Nathan Pugh says he's following me now to help make things worse. Huzzah!
There you go. If you are listening to the show and you are not following OSG Nelson on Twitter, and yes, I believe his Twitter name is Cute Sports Guy, which maybe is why you don't get a lot of followers, John. You might want to figure that one out.
You want to talk to the boss about that one?
Last time I checked, it's your Twitter. And, you know, people might be a little thrown off.
So when the boss refers to me as Cute Sports Guy.
Does she refer to you at Cute Sports Guy?
She refers to me as...
No, at. It's Twitter, John.
See, but... she doesn't refer to me at Cute Sports
Then you
Guy.
could actually put your name on there, and maybe you get more followers. I'm just saying. We're going to have to get intern Niall on John's Twitter to try to fix this whole set of mess. I don't want to do that to Niall. I want Niall to help us out for a couple weeks.
Mateo to do it?
No, Mateo is not getting involved in that at all. Mateo already looked at it and said, nope, I want no part of it. One day, John will have more than 3,000 followers, but it won't be today. No. Let's move on. Please. Let's get into a little bit of the rundown today, because there's a lot of financial talk. There's a lot of people talking about There are money situations around the world in the game. Barcelona is constantly talking about their money situations. There's more on that. Borussia Dortmund is talking about their financial situations or how bad they could get if they don't qualify for Champions League next year. And Andrea Agnelli from Juventus is talking about financial situations across the board and thinks it's a lot worse than a lot of people are assuming it will be. He also threw some cold water on the European Super League idea as well. So that was an interesting little component of his conversation. We'll get into that. We'll talk about how it could affect some of the moves that have been on the table in silly season and could get done before the end of the next few days when the window closes. We'll talk about Zlatan versus Lukaku from yesterday. Could have been a good heavyweight fight, but instead there was a lot of really, really questionable things being said. And maybe I'm in the minority, but I think Zlatan should be in a whole lot more trouble than people are thinking he should be in for what he had to say. We'll get into that. We will get into some of the MLS rumors. Eric Remedi is being rumored to be on the move. We'll talk about where that's coming from, how valid it could be, et cetera, et cetera. We'll talk about Big Sam. Big Sam had himself a day. He had himself a day. Steve Bruce had himself a day as well. But we're going to start with our brain teaser from intern Niall to get you thinking this morning, to get you thinking about what this year could be, what the rest of this season could be. He zeroed in on Atletico Madrid today. We've talked about Atleti and where they stand and how things look in La Liga for Atleti. They're leading the table. They are 7 points clear of Real Madrid. They are 10 points clear of Barcelona. They are 11 points clear of Sevilla. That's your top four. They have a game in hand on all of them. They are in the driver's seat by far in La Liga. They've only conceded 8 goals in 18 games. They've scored 36. They've only lost once. I mean, the numbers need a not safe for work warning on them. They're that good. And it's probably going to get better with what they have coming up in the league table over the next few weeks. They go to Cadiz, they host Celta Vigo, they go to Granada, then they have a back-to-back, which is strange, with Levante away and then home. A lot of mid-table stuff, a lot of games they should be able to handle. That takes you up to the Champions League, and that takes you up to the series with Chelsea. It's a two-part question, and we want your answers on Twitter. And when you're on Twitter, make sure you're following OSG Nelson so we can get him up to a reasonable number of followers. And follow Jared_Smith, too, if you're not already. I think most of you are following me, but go ahead and follow me if you're not at Longshoe. And follow @Soccer down here as well.
Yes.
Here's the question. Is Atleti the odds-on favorite to win La Liga? If not, who is? Second part, are they the odds-on favorite to win the Champions League? I don't think a lot of people are talking about them in the Champions League side of things, and I don't know if there's a team that is better built for Champions League with the right kind of manager to win Champions League and potentially less stress in their domestic competition to be able to focus on Champions League. Is it looking like a double for Atleti this year? A big-time double with Champions League and La Liga. I might be lining up some good juice boxes in that realm. I think it could be a very good year for Diego Simeone and Atleti. I can't really go against them in the Champions League. Jarrett, what do you think about your boy, Cholo, Diego Simeone?
I think he's capable of killing. I think he has killed before, and he will do it again.
Yeah?
He needs the opportunity. Yeah. I think he's got to feel really good about the league. So at this point, why not just what's the table look like?
They're at the top by 7. They got a game in hand. I mean, they're in a great spot in the league. You know, like they host Real Madrid on March 7th. That's the next like dicey
That's the fulcrum of the entire schedule.
Yeah,
if
and
you win that,
they get them at home, so I mean that helps you too. You've got the Chelsea series. You're good up until the first game of the Chelsea series, and you get that at home too. You've got mid-table games. You should be able to take care of business. Now, In between,
Chelsea's kind of like grabbing a raccoon in the dark right now. You don't really know what's going to happen with Thomas Tuchel taking over that team, and for that reason, Chelsea's kind of scary in that sense. Just because I don't know what they're going to be, and they might go. I would be pouring all my coins into this Chelsea matchup than going for double glory, though. Yeah,
you've got games you can manage getting into that. Then in between, it's a little tricky because you go to Villarreal, and they're fifth. I mean, they're 13 points behind you, and you've got 2 games in hand on them. They're not a challenger for the title, but okay, you go there. That's a little tricky. Then you host Real Madrid. Then you have Getafe in there, and Getafe is mid-table. Then you get the second leg with Chelsea. But, okay, you get that Real Madrid game fairly early. That's your last game with them. When do they play Barca? You go to Barcelona May 9th. That's pretty far down the road. You get your toughest opponent in the league at home in this second half of the season. I think Atleti's got the league. If they blow the league, it's catastrophic. But I think they can win both.
All right. Here's what I did while the two of you were talking. I went and looked up futures for juice boxes for the winner of Champions League.
Okay. Who's the favorite?
Bayern at plus 300.
Wouldn't touch that right now.
Second, Manchester City at plus 400.
Yep. That one's a little scary.
Liverpool plus 700.
Wouldn't touch that right now.
Juve and PSG at plus 1,200.
Wouldn't touch either. Why is Juve in this conversation right now where they're at? No.
Real Madrid plus 1,600.
Okay.
Barcelona plus 2,000.
Okay, I better go get my juice boxes ready.
Uh-huh.
I need to stack some juice boxes is what I'm hearing.
Uh-huh.
All right. Well, where are they?
Good God.
8th at plus 2,200.
Whew.
And that's
8th out of 16.
GM. You better find some juice boxes, brother. I mean, that's cran grape territory for me.
Man, that's craziness.
Nick Alifi is like twisting in the wind right now. His back is probably snapped in half in trying to rationalize all this.
That's crazy. I really like that number. I'm not gonna lie. I really, really like that number. There's some teams ahead of them that I don't get. Bayern can get things fixed.
Yeah.
Definitely that. Manchester City's gonna be really tough. I would say Manchester City is maybe the odds-on favorite. If I had a juice box service, it would probably
with a healthy Kevin De Bruyne.
Yeah, and that's the question mark. That's the one is, okay, 6 weeks. Can they get by Mönchengladbach in that first round of it? Yeah. Then is he back at full strength in 6 weeks? Or is it going to take him a little bit longer? I still think they're the favorite. Bayern right now is not the favorite, not the way they've been playing.
I've got Atleti as one of my top 3. And at 2,200, I'll jump on those juice boxes if I had them.
Yeah. Now, keep in mind, the round of 16 is set. It will start February 16th. Half of the teams play the 16th and 17th. Half play the 23rd and the 24th. Second legs will be wrapped up by March 17th. The draw for the quarterfinals, it's not a bracket. I think that can throw people at times. It's not a bracket yet. The draw for the quarterfinals is held 2 days after the last games of the round of 16. So it's a little tough, and that's why these numbers are big. Because, what happens if it's Atleti and Bayern drawn in the quarterfinals? Well, that's not good. In terms of route, in terms of the way they've played this season, the respect I have for Simeone, he's got a guy in Luis Suarez who is one of the best signings in the last few years because Barcelona gave him to you. you're set. You're built to win Champions League. They are absolutely built to win Champions League, and they would be my pick right now. My pick is a double for Atleti, La Liga, and Champions League.
They also just got Moussa Dembele on a loan as another striker who has done damage in Champions League as recently as last year, who, I need someone to come on for 15 minutes and be a threat up top. There you go. That's not a bad weapon to have.
Not too shabby.
At least you can play him in the league and save Suarez's legs for Champions League if you want to.
That's why I edge it to Atleti, is they don't have the same stress in the league. You've got some squad rotation that you can do because, first off, you've got winnable games between now and the Chelsea series. You've got that Real Madrid game. It's in the middle of your gap between the Chelsea legs, so you can go full bore into it. You don't have to worry about that. And if you lose it, you still have a cushion. You're still okay. So I've got Atleti to win both. I've got Atleti at least those two trophies this year. That's my pick. But let us know what you think. Tweet at us. Give us a heads up on that. Let us know what you think and tell us why. Give us more than just the yes or no. Give us a reason why. Give us something to point to. Tweet at us at Soccer Down here and answer intern Niles' question of the day. All right. We've got other rumors to get into, and let's jump into the domestic front, and let's jump into the Atlanta United front, because this started, late in the afternoon yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. You started to get Argentine reports. TIC, a lot of people associated with TIC is where it seemed to start. Eric Remedi. Now, he is being linked with some form of a move to Independiente. I've seen loan. I've just seen a move. I don't know. Some reporting is that he's out of contract in the summer. He came in mid-season in 2018, so if it's a 3-year deal, yeah, he could be out of contract in the summer. We do see some MLS teams make those kind of moves. That's typical for Argentine teams. They have a lot of contracts that come up in the summertime. So, okay, if he's out of contract in the summer, are you going to be able to get a transfer fee? Would you loan him for the last 6 months of his deal? Would it just be for him to then sign there? I don't know. That part I have no idea, because we're not sure that his contract's up in the summer. The thing that makes this make a lot of sense is the new manager at Independiente, Julio Cesar Falcioni. He was at Bonfield when Remedi was there, and he trusted Remedi at Bonfield a lot. He played in the 1 in a 4-1-4-1 in that defensive midfield role. He knows what he brings to the table, has a good relationship with him. That all makes a lot of sense. And Independiente needs to upgrade. They do need some upgrades. So, it's not coming from Cesar Luis Merlo. Keep that in mind. He is tier 1. I really don't see many things that he goes with that don't happen. It's coming from different people, but very respected people. These are not the 500 Twitter followers or even John's 2,800, whatever it is.
2750.
I guess we can trust you. These guys have far more followers than that, and they're coming from big outlets. So is there something to it? It does click the making sense buttons.
Yeah.
It wouldn't shock me. And if you're going to bring in Franco Ibarra, which has been reported, there's no updates on that yet, that central midfield group gets even more crowded. Jarrett, we've talked about Eric Remedi. This would be his third season here, or his fourth season here, if he is here this year. He's been a really valuable part of this team, especially when he first arrived. He struggled over the last, couple of seasons, at least the last year and a half, I would say. He struggled for consistency, and maybe others have passed him on the depth chart.
It's possible. He put 3 of the most impressive attacking midfields in his pocket in the 2018 playoffs. I'll remind people that he put New York City, New York Red Bulls, and Portland, and just was a key guy in diffusing those midfields that were really dangerous. Put some really good players in his pocket for a 5-game stretch that was absolutely absurd. It was a brilliant signing in that sense. I still liken him to watching somebody play Guitar Hero. When it's going really well, it goes real well. But the first time they make that mistake, it's almost like they can't find the rhythm again. If he makes a mistake, he sometimes struggles to find that rhythm again. Although I do like Remedi. And I thought we saw what he can be, for me, most efficiently when you go to Orlando for the U.S. Open Cup in 2019. You don't have Joseph Martinez. Eric Remedi plays a bit more of an advanced role and just terrorizes the living hell out of Orlando. Like, the potential, aside from putting guys in his pocket, the potential to be more than that was there. And with what, possibly 6 months on his deal here, it's going to be a crowded midfield. And maybe he likes his chances. Maybe he stays. Maybe if those rumors are true, maybe a team like Independiente is reaching out and saying, hey, I know you got a crowded midfield. How about you unload that crowded midfield now? And if you're Atlanta, I think you will listen real hard because you're thinking we can get something for him, as opposed to letting him walk in the summer for nothing, which is what so many teams have been doing in the last few years, and it's maddening.
Yeah,
if you don't think he's going to be part of your picture.
Yep. Keep in mind, if he is out of contract in the summer, he can sign and leave in the summer for free. So, like, you're at that point where there's not a lot of really negotiating room. Can it happen? Yeah, it can. You know, sometimes teams will get a little something to let him go 6 months early before the end of the deal. We're not 100% sure he's out of contract in the summer. That needs to be understood. That's what Transfermarkt has. He did come midseason 2018. A 3-year deal would make sense. Sometimes you see MLS teams turn that into a 3.5-year deal to make up and get on the MLS calendar. Sometimes they don't. So that part we don't really know. I think it is safe to say he's near the end of his deal. You know, if this is I wouldn't expect him to be under contract past this season.
Right.
So, you know, I don't know where that fits. But I think what you're saying about the rhythm, he has struggled to bounce back from mistakes in games. I will 100% agree with you. That Orlando game in Open Cup in the semifinal, that was, I'll say that's his greatest performance in an Atlanta United shirt. And he had great ones in 2018. And he had great ones in the postseason in 2018. But that was a game in that semifinal where you didn't have Joseph Martinez. You were playing Ezequiel Barco and Pity Martinez up top, and it was really disjointed early on because you're kind of playing two false nines, and it's just getting the best players on the field and trying to see what you can make out of it. Eric Remedi made it make sense by stepping forward and creating things going forward.
Coincidentally, he and Emerson Hyndman scored in that game, and those are the two guys that I personally have questions about for the midfield this year. Not to say they can't succeed or that they should be sold immediately, but those are the guys I'm looking hard at to see, how do you fit into this midfield? How is this audition going to go for you?
We don't really know. But this rumor's popped up. It's reasonable. Doesn't mean it happens. But it's reasonable. It's one to keep an eye on because of the history with Facione, because of the need for Independiente, and because of the crowded position group here and potentially another one incoming. We'll keep you posted on more updates, but nothing else as of yet. What do you think about it, John?
No, and I think that you've seen far too many teams in Major League Soccer let folks walk. And if this is something that is being considered, this would be the window to make something happen to where you're not just losing an asset and not getting anything in return for a double negative in a sentence. If you're going to jump on a transaction, this would be the window to do that. So you're not losing out on an opportunity, especially in this current environment, to get resources in return. Midfield is crowded, and I also know that, you think back to last season, and I know that a lot of folks, with that recency bias in their head, there's that moment where Eric Remedi gets his pocket picked and it ends up going down the other way and it ends up with a goal going against you. And to both of your points, there seemed to be times where it took him a while to shake off those mistakes. And separately, once again, if this is that time, this is the time to jump on this kind of a transaction so you don't lose out on getting anything in return.
Yeah, and don't worry about what the the return is. I don't think it really matters too much in this case. If you get something back, and especially if you get something that you can convert into allocation money, then
Right.
you win. If you get anything back that just offsets, what you've spent, cool. It's not a must that you get something here. I think the must is if Remedi wants to go, and if there are good offers on the table, it's getting him into the right place. Because that's the must in terms of continuing a good relationship, having him speak well of you, of what you did for him. If this is where he wants to go, get him there, because he's going to be going back to a manager who knows him well and is probably going to trust him and probably give him a lot of playing time. That's a good thing to be. That's a really good thing to be. So if you can do that for somebody who has been a good part of the club, the return, especially if you can't get enough to qualify to get that allocation money, then that's fine. That's fine. You get what you can. We'll see how that goes. We'll see where it goes. We'll keep you posted on it. Other MLS stuff from the last 24 hours or so. We talked a lot about teams that we were kind of looking at to make moves, who were excited about in the Eastern Conference, who were worried about in the Eastern Conference. One report that has been simmering, maybe is the best way to put it, out in Los Angeles is that Greg Vanney could bring Sebastian Giovinco back to MLS to come into LA. He left MLS ahead of 2019. He went to Al Hilal in Saudi Arabia. He's 33 now. He scored 11 goals in 45 games at Al Hilal, won the league, won the Champions League in Asia. Vanney managed Giovinco in Toronto. It went pretty well. Would it go as well a couple years down the road? I don't know.
And that for me is the question. You look on that driver's license and you see 33, and you've scored 11 goals in 45 with Al Hilal, but what's Jarrett? What does that tread look like on the tires if he comes back here to MLS at the age of 33?
That's my question on it. And as much as tread, it's a matter of how much mileage is on those legs as well, and how can you manage that mileage? LA is a team that do they still have more holes than a Swiss cheese factory on a missile range on that roster?
Yes.
Pretty close. They have signed a few folks, but it's let's pull that up real quick and look at where the Galaxy stand. They've got,
I think you're going to need, go ahead.
They've got 2 or 3 positions that are really worrisome. Goalkeeper, they just don't have a guy with starting level experience. You added Jonathan Bond, you've got Jonathan Klinsmann there. You've got 2 young guys in Justin Vomsteeg and Eric Lopez. I don't know who the starter is. I would assume Bond. I'm guessing, because why would you bring him in otherwise? You added Jorge Villafana. You've got Danilo Acosta at left back. You're good there. Center back, you've got Daniel Steres. You've got Giancarlo Gonzalez, who was up and down. You've got Nick Dupuis. You've got a couple of homegrowns in there. All right. You've got Julian Araujo at right back, who is allegedly getting some interest with a potential European move, so stay tuned on that one. Midfield, you've got Jonathan Dos Santos, you've got Sebastian Lletget, you've got Efrain Alvarez, you've got Sasha Kljestan still hanging around, coming off the bench.
Good God, he's still around?
Yeah, coming off the bench. Hey, I'll take him. I'll take him coming off the bench in those spots.
I'm not mad at that. I just forgot he existed.
It's true.
With the Galaxy these days will do that.
It's true. You have one winger, Jonathan Perez, who we haven't seen, so we don't know. And you've got Chicharito up top and Cameron Dunbar backing him up. You've got 20 guys on the roster. 4 of them are goalkeepers, and they're still, in my opinion, left wing, right wing, goalkeeper are the questions. But you have no wingers, and you don't have a goalkeeper you can trust.
You're just going to play the 4-2-2-2-2 that the Red Bulls was playing under Jesse Marsch.
Well, I mean, no,
let's not going to play with wingers.
Let's play the game, because Greg Vanney, we've seen him play 4-2-3-1 quite a bit. If you play Alvarez out wide, maybe, okay, you still got some work to do. If you play the 3-5-2 that we have seen Greg Vanney play quite a bit, you could do it with your 3 center backs with Steres, Gonzalez, and Dupuis. You could play Acosta or Villafana as a left wing back. You could play Araujo as a right wing back. You're good there. You got Jonathan Dos Santos. You've got Sebastian Lletget as your two holding midfielders. That's good. Then you've got Chicharito. You've got Efrain Alvarez. And you could add Sebastian Giovinco into that. And that's not too shabby.
It's not shabby. I will not doubt Giovinco that he could come back in here and waylay this league in limited quantities. It just at 33, I worry about his legs running out of gas. In late summer if you don't manage his minutes.
Yeah.
But as far as when he's on the field, especially early in the year, sure, I don't want any part of that. He's still going to be a problem. That part's probably not going to change in his ability to be a problem. That will still be a thing. My whole issue for him is, the ability to do it all year long, which I assume Vanny knows him well enough. He'll know how to rotate him. He'll know how to read him. But is he going to have the bodies and the quality to say, I can leave him on the bench today and we'll be okay? Because that hasn't been the case for the LA Galaxy in a while. Not the whole can I leave him on the bench, but no, just the last part of we'll be okay. That hasn't been the case for the Galaxy in a while. Because,
and you give Chicharito a tag team partner with Giovinco, and you need Chicharito to step up from what happened last year. And giving him somebody like this gives him might give him that extra boost. And Jared, you talked about positional gravity. Folks are drawn to one so the other can flourish. So maybe this is a situation where that happens.
That could work. Go ahead.
No, I mean, it's possible. I think you're letting a guy like Giovinco go find the game if it's something that happens. Hey Chicharito, I want you to poach. Do what has worked for you for a decade plus, please. And hey Seba, go find the game. You go find the game where you want to find it. And we'll actually have a structure now in the midfield that might not hemorrhage to the back line. Maybe.
It's a big maybe. But the 3-5-2 with Vanny that we've seen him play a good bit, if you added Giovinco to that, it would actually work, and it would solve some of the issues without having real wingers. And you'd have some flexibility. I mean, Alvarez could slot out wide, at least on one side. You've got some young guys. One of them could emerge. But the 3-5-2 with Giovinco and Chicharito up top
find something in South America like everyone else is doing.
You absolutely could. And there's a lot of that going on right now with a lot of rumors out of South America. We mentioned Tomas Pochettino to Austin. That one's still on the books, possible.
Vancouver's spending money.
Vancouver is spending money, and we did not expect to see Vancouver necessarily spending money. I still don't know what to think of Marc Dos Santos and where that goes, but adding another U20 World Cup star in Deibar Caicedo from Colombia into that team, I don't know what to expect out of Vancouver, but at least it feels like they're trying.
Yeah.
I'll take that.
Yeah.
It's a step in the right direction, at least.
Yeah. That's the best thing I can say.
Vancouver's doing everything they can to not become the new Chicago for you or for you and a lot of people, where you just hate them on principle.
Yes, there's definitely that. You had a couple of homegrown sign in Miami, two guys who had a good bit of experience with Fort Lauderdale in the USL League One. Pretty good bit of hype on the winger, Edison Azcona. They added a center back, Ian Frey, as well. I do think Miami will do a good job with their academy. I think they will develop talent. It takes time. It doesn't happen in a year or two, as we're seeing here in Atlanta. It takes a good 5 years to be able to get the academy going and start to see your guys come through. Because when you add guys at the beginning of your club and your academy, if you do it this way, some other clubs have said, we're not even going to do that. We're just going to start with a U12 group and then just keep adding as we go. But if you do it this way, you're adding guys in who have been developed elsewhere, who've been developed in a different way. And it's not that you're trying to teach something completely different or deprogram anything. It's just they didn't grow up in a professional environment. For the most case, every once in a while you'll get somebody who comes into your academy who has come from another academy. I know it can happen, but in general, your guys did not come from that situation. So you compare even Atlanta United's early homegrowns to the homegrowns now, it feels like night and day. Because you've got guys who have been in the academy and been in a professional training environment for 3, 4, going on now 5 years. That's a very different kind of player coming through. So this is good for Miami, but this isn't what their academy will be doing long term. With the talent they have in that area, you just do what the U did back in the day in college football, and you just fence off South Florida, and you get the best talent from South Florida, you will have a really strong academy, and you'll produce professionals if you're doing your job correctly.
Just have Larry Coker out there recruiting.
Well, and Ragamuffin says pay their players, and did Miami get in trouble for paying their players in the same way that some others did? I think they did it a little bit at least.
Yeah. Everybody was paying their players.
That's also true. And yes, you can sign them to homegrown deals and pay them legally, so you're good.
Yes. Yeah.
You don't even have to worry about it.
No, it was not. It was not like the Wild West. Yeah, it wasn't like Pony Excess and stuff like that. And it wasn't like the Southwest Conference. No, not that bad. At least Miami did it, and they didn't get caught. Let's put it that way.
Well, they got caught in some ways, I think, or at least I remember Luke Campbell was involved with some of this.
Yeah, Luther Campbell and
then
Uncle Nevin. Yeah, Uncle Nevin was a part of that group too. In recent years, not back in the 90s.
Oh, Luke was involved back in the 90s and 80s too. Luke was definitely involved. Luke's been doing that for a while.
Luther Campbell and the University of Miami, and then it went into Nevin Shapiro for version 2.0, and then he brought Luther Campbell back in as a part of the discussion to help things out at the University of Miami.
That's always a good idea. All right, John filled the section on the show sheet, so you guys have to deal with it. I don't think you've been here for one of these, Jarrett.
What?
I know. I'm
just going to let it happen.
You just sit back and let it happen. Don't try to mess with it because things get broken.
Including my rhythm.
That's always broken.
Yep.
So, John.
Hey, I saw this. Actually, I saw a lot of things.
You did see a lot of things. What did you see, John?
Okay, well, first, I was just thinking about guilty pleasures. On a day like this where you don't want to go outside.
Nope, I'm out.
And it's just.
Are you leaving, Jared?
You're at the door already.
I got a hand on the. Actually, I got like a couple minutes. I'll stay through this.
Okay.
Well,
I kind of want to see how it ends.
Yeah.
So on a day like this where you don't want to go outside unless you absolutely have to, and things like that, it was just making me think of guilty pleasures that we watch on TV. So, is there a movie or a TV series that's soccer based, or a league outside of today that is a guilty pleasure that everyone around you sit there and goes, dude, why would you want to watch that?
Lower division Argentine soccer. And we got semifinals in the promotion today for getting into the first division. So, yes, I am all in on that guilty pleasure.
See, that's cool, though. I like that kind of stuff. And that's why I was asking that, too. Jarrett?
You know my answer to this. I sit there and watch Celtic every week, and I just get angrier every week.
There's no pleasure in that.
And then
I was going to say, is it a guilty pleasure?
It used to be, although I do enjoy when I can find them, Inverness, Caledonia, and Thistle, just because they tend to just go for it, and they kind of have you catch enough of their games, you catch enough of those 5-3 games of they took bath salts in the 5th minute and forgot there were 85 minutes left.
Yes.
That's always fun. Livingston actually right now is fun to watch because they have a former made man running the team.
Yeah, tell that story real quick as best you can, because I didn't even know how to tackle it.
Okay, so Livingston is in 5th place in Scotland. Gary Holt was running the team a couple of years ago. They came up from the lower divisions, And Gary Holt had a good run. He stepped away early this season and basically said, "Hey, I'm not the guy for this team anymore. I've done all I can, so I'm going to step away." And it's like, well, okay, that's fine. A guy named David Martindale takes over the team. In 11 games, he has 9 wins and 2 losses. They took points off of Celtic two straight games last week, and in both games, probably should have won. But dude doesn't even care. Like, they went into Celtic Park and were pressing Celtic and making them very uncomfortable, and actually look like they have a clue of what they're doing. Now, where this gets interesting is David Martindale played youth soccer, and until I think he got to a certain point in his career, he just wasn't good enough or just was lazy, like a lot of us are when we're young, and you're not like a generational talent, and you're just like, I could do this, but I got other things to do in life. Had a bar, I believe, or a pub that burned down. He didn't have insurance on it. And then he got involved with organized crime, money laundering, drug trade, everything. He got popped and spent 4 years in prison. While he was in jail, got his degree, I think he got construction management or something, but got out early. I think he was supposed to serve 7 years. He served 4. But he got out and wanted to still be involved in the sport. So he went to Livingston, which was the local club. It's over in West Lothian, which I'm sure all of you have your maps out.
I
You're
totally know where that is.
Now. So Livingston at that point, they must have been like second or third division. So he volunteers. It's like, I'll do whatever you need. Like, pick up cones after training, like, pick up weeds out of the field, line the field, whatever you need. So he started literally just a volunteer. There was some uproar about this convicted criminal who just got out is volunteering at a club. But, he stuck with it, and he has slowly risen through the ranks, and they gave him they eventually put him on part of the coaching staff. And he's got his B license. I think he's close to, or he's gotten his A license. He had to go to Ireland to get his license because Scotland is a little picky about giving licenses out to, people who spent time in prison.
Oh, wow.
But he's done a great job. I don't know how long this run goes, but the dude's won 9 of 11 games. The only 2 games he drew were against a dysfunctional Celtic team. One was in Celtic Park, which most teams don't go to Celtic Park and pull points even in the worst of years for Celtic. And the second one was in a snowstorm at Livingston. And the guy's been doing everything you could have asked of him. He started literally as a volunteer, worked his way up, has done the studying, has done his coaching licenses, and seems to genuinely enjoy it. And they're just a joy to watch. Like I said, they actually play like they have a plan. And it is absolutely wonderful. And to not get too on the stump about, about prison policies and whatnot, if your whole idea of, putting people in jail is to reform them, then it is what you want to see, which is not just to punish a guy, but a guy who screwed up, who went to jail, got his degree while in jail, was working, and then decided he wanted to pursue something and, has really turned his life around and has taken his club now to 5th in the Scottish Premier Division.
That's a pretty wild story. Okay, that's a great guilty pleasure to watch. You want to leave it on that, Jared, or do you want to stick around for the madness?
I'll leave it on that. I'll probably listen to the rest of it, but yeah, I'll leave it on that. But that's a guilty pleasure. Also, There's also always Australian rules football. You can watch, like, late at night.
Yes,
that's a good one. Yeah, I've been known to do that. Good shout. Jared, thanks for hanging out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
We'll do it another day.
Yeah.
We'll do it another day.
See you soon.
See y'all.
All
right. Johannes has chimed in. Soccer-wise, watching Liga MX on 2Day NA, not understanding the commentary, but that is a guilty pleasure. Outside of soccer, Johannes watches biathlon religiously every weekend in the winter.
Oh, wow. So here's my second, hey, I saw this. And
what's your guilty pleasure?
It's Australian rules football. It's Liga MX on 2 NA. It is the Central American soccer leagues that are on like Nuestra Tele, where you get to see the trees that are in the stands, the shade trees. Literally, they're right in the middle. Like was it Limon? I think has the shade tree at midfield, and then another one in the corner.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll watch Central American games and I'll watch Liga MX. So those are my guilty pleasures when it comes to soccer.
From a soccer perspective, it's the lower divisions in Argentina. I love when they pop up on Teise, and I'll definitely get into those and then start reading about these teams and all the crazy stories about it. From a non-soccer perspective, my most recent one, I mean, it's been a long time guilty pleasure. Anytime I see Beverly Hills 90210, I'll go on like a tangent of watching a few episodes. And I saw an episode or saw something that got me going on it and watched a few episodes over the weekend. The ones where Valerie showed up and had one of the greatest intros in TV history, where everybody thought she was this, great, nice person, and then she's rolling up a joint in Brenda's old room. That was a great intro on TV. But yes, that is my guilty pleasure for non-soccer.
Yeah, for me, it's got to be the early episodes of 90210 if I'm going to be watching that stuff.
Why would you watch that?
Another guilty pleasure for me is Da Vinci's Inquest.
Okay.
Canadian TV series, Nicholas Campbell. He was the Vancouver coroner, and basically it was an episodic crime series with him that won a boatload of awards in Canada, and Ace is now re-showing it, and they've started from the absolute beginning, so that's good stuff there. Leverage, it's another one. Timothy Hutton from TNT, that's another one. Question number 2 in Hey, I Saw This. And it has to do with one of the topics on the board over your left shoulder.
Okay.
If Romelu Lukaku and Zlatan Ibrahimovic really were allowed to fight, who do you think would win?
Lukaku. I don't care what martial arts Zlatan knows, and he's not going to be able to throw cheap shots like he's prone to do because he's going to be facing up with the guy. Lukaku would break him in half. And especially if Zlatan said some of the garbage like he said yesterday, and now he's trying to walk it back. I'm just going to ask a question. What Edinson Cavani said to a friend in an Instagram message or story, I think is what it was. I think he was responding to a story. What he said to a friend got him a 3-game ban. Mm-hmm. What Zlatan said was not to a friend. It was not friendly. And, okay, sure, he says he's referencing something about his Everton transfer. That was racist when it happened then. What Zlatan said yesterday was reprehensible, and he should be banned for games. But he probably won't because he's Zlatan, and everybody's going to say, ha, 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 he was trash-talking. Ha, 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 he brought something. How clever. He brought something back up that was horrible when it came up at Everton. Reprehensible. Incredible player. Incredible what he's done going to Milan. Incredible what he did at the LA Galaxy, except for carrying the team to winning any trophies. Incredible goal scorer. Pretty garbage as a person with the cheap shots, with throwing elbows. Go ask Mohamed El Munir about it, how he cracked his face open. What is reported that he said with Lukaku, and Zlatan put a tweet out saying he's not racist and all that. He said something, and it's awful, and it's so much more awful than what Cavani did to get 3 games in England with the FA. This is Italy, I know. What Zlatan did yesterday was awful. Well, Lukaku also said some things, too, that were not racial, just wanted to fight the guy, and I think allegedly wanted to fight him after the game as well.
Yes.
That's not good. What Zlatan is being alleged to have said is awful. Mm-hmm. Awful. It's not Zlatan being Zlatan. I know Mazzano, that's what the apologists will give. It's awful. And for Cavani to get suspended for what he did, which was nothing, especially if you know anything about context or actually do your homework, what Zlatan said, at a minimum, is reporting an awful racist thing that was said when Lukaku was leaving Everton. So he's just repeating somebody else's. That doesn't make it okay. Mm-mm. Awful. Awful. Yeah. So angry about that. And nobody's really seeming to be too upset about it because he's Zlatan. Cheap shot artist. Just awful.
Italian football TV, IFTV official, they said that they watched the footage and then they kind of broke it down as best that they could. And that is some nasty stuff. It's just ridiculous. It's uncalled for. And it's absolutely asinine. that was what was said by Zlatan yesterday.
No, it's not asinine because, I mean, he's saying it, he says, to try to reference something from the past. Okay, fine. If he's trying to get under his skin, like, yeah, I get it. Doesn't make it right. Doesn't make it okay. And doesn't mean it's less racist. It's a joke. It's an absolute joke. And, you know, yeah, you can tweet that you don't stand for racism and all these different things. That's great words. When you got angry because somebody was getting the better of you, and Zlatan's popped off out the mouth a couple of games now and kind of embarrassed himself, you get angry and you say something reckless like that and you show your true colors. And that's a problem. That's a really, really big, big problem. Very insulting, and Zlatan should be getting criticized all over the world for it. It's awful.
Tafka, before I get into my third topic, Tafka has actually attended an Aussie Rules football match in Melbourne and Geelong. He says, it's a shame the sport hasn't grown in other countries. It's very exciting, and the best all-around athletes I've ever seen, endurance and speed of soccer, but the strength of tight ends.
Yeah, Aussie Rules is a fun game to watch, and it's not too complicated. Like, you can get the gist of how the game plays pretty well, pretty quickly. I mean, when I was a kid, ESPN would have it on late at night, or they had it on actually at all hours of the day. And we tried to figure out how to play it. We had like trees in the backyard that were almost like the goalposts.
Nice.
Set up. They weren't lined up the same way, but we had trees like that on one end of the backyard, and we'd play like half-field Aussie Rules in our own way in Riverdale, Georgia. It was pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, we would do the same things too, but just the hardest thing was trying to take your American football and try to get the bounces right as you're trying to go down the field to do those kinds of things.
Yeah, we didn't try it with an American football. We just did it with a round ball because that was the way we could get the closest thing to it.
Topic number 3, and it was it's a couple of different websites in England are chasing the story. Boris Johnson is now attempting to ban gambling sites on the front of soccer jerseys. Increasing concerns over gambling addiction in the UK could see Boris Johnson announcing a ban on betting company sponsors appearing on football shirts in the months ahead. This is an article in The Telegraph. It's behind a pay window, but others have analyzed it. With a review being conducted by the government, The Telegraph report the Prime Minister could bring about a ban as soon as autumn, despite there being an awareness that such a move would increase pressure on the sport at a time when revenue streams have been severely hit by the COVID-19 pandemic. Any decision will be informed by evidence of the betting industry's influence on addiction within the sport, but the suggestion is that a shirt sponsor ban looks increasingly likely to happen.
You just said addiction within the sport. Is he wanting to do this because of players, coaches, staff members having gambling addictions, or is he doing this just because of the possibility of gambling addictions?
And I've seen it both ways, because in that article, the first one that I referenced from Joe, it says within, but then there are others where they're discussing, Versus had an article in 2020, back in July, where they were discussing associations with young people, like 11 to 14-year-olds who are exposed to these kinds of things. So I've seen it both ways being referenced.
Is he talking about getting rid of alcohol or liquor sponsors?
Haven't seen any of that.
Because that's another addiction issue. I don't know if you can pick this one and not pick the others. Now, if it is about issues within the game, we're having a different conversation. You do have to worry about the potential of players, staff members, what have you, throwing games or being involved and using inside information. That is definitely an issue. If it's about addiction, I don't know where you can draw the line, and that's a really tough one. The timing is awful because of the financial situations, and we'll get into that in hour number 2 after Mike Conti joins us here in a couple of minutes. The timing's horrible. I don't know if they can handle this right now, to be perfectly honest. I don't know if it's the right time to do it because of the financial situation. Dr. D said, I believe I saw somewhere that gambling addiction is on the rise in England due to a combination of the increased visibility from soccer jerseys and due to predatory microtransactions in mobile and sports games. It's tough. It's tough. I mean, anything like this, you've got to, if you are on the outside of it, you have nothing to do with it, you've got to, manage your financial situation. You've got to handle it. There are people who can gamble and enjoy it and not have an addiction issue. There are people who can't. Just like there are people who can have a couple beers or have a couple, vodka tonics or whatever and handle it and be fine, and there are others who can't. Does that, because to me it's both. Like if you're going to allow one, you have to allow both.
Yeah.
If you're going to ban one, you have to ban both.
Right.
It doesn't feel like you can separate them outside of gambling problems in the game that are affecting the competitions. And I don't think there's a whole lot of that. Does it happen? Right. Absolutely. It does.
Yes.
And we know it does. But has it happened more because of the sponsorships? I don't think so. I don't know. I don't have an answer to this. But from a financial perspective, it's a horrible time for it because these clubs are going to have to start bringing in revenue. And yeah, even if when fans get back in the building, you're just doing what you would have done normally. You've got to make up for losses.
Yep.
And you've got to find ways to make up for losses. And that's going to be really tough. So I'll be curious to see how this plays out. I don't think it ultimately happens. Is there some kind of controls placed on it? I could see that for sure. But I don't know if it ultimately happens because
27 of the 44 teams in the Premier League and the Championship have some form of betting on their shirt.
That's why I don't know if it happens, because that's a lot. And I don't know if you can make up that revenue quickly or make the changes quickly enough. Could it get phased in or something? We'll have to wait and see. That's an interesting one. John saw a lot of things over the last 24 hours, and that is what John has seen and what he's been thinking about. He's also been thinking about how to get a better score on his ad read for our good friend Steve Apolinsky, and now's that time.
Excellent transition, sir. Apolinsky and Associates, LLC, proud supporters of everything soccer down here in the SDH network. For wrongful death and serious injury matters, only one place that you need to go to have your questions answered. It's Apolinsky and Associates, LLC. A couple different ways that you can get in touch with Steve and the firm. Shoot Steve an email directly, steve@aa-legal.com. You can get a free consultation by dialing them up, landline or cell, 404-377-9191. Or you can go on the World Wide Web. Large device or small, you type in aa-legal.com, you hit the arrow key, the enter key, the return, whichever advances it to the home page. And it is at aa-legal.com a pop-up window. We'll answer your questions, or the individual on the other end of the pop-up window will answer your questions 24/7, 365 and a quarter. Thank you, Chris Hutchison, for always reminding us of that. Over 30 years of experience, over $40 million in judgments for clients in Georgia and Alabama. Recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend Magazine for being one of the top 100 firms in this here state of Georgia. For wrongful death and serious injury matters, there's only one place that you need to go. It's Apolinsky and Associates, LLC. The website is aa-legal.com.
That was your fastest.
Well, Mike is coming up. I didn't want to push Mike any further.
I thoroughly understand. That is very good.
And there was no topical reference, and I figured it out. The reason that it was longer 2 days ago was because there was a topical reference that was made in there that expanded the read.
Okay. I gotcha. Let's get Matteo on the job, getting Mike Conti on the line with us. Matteo's working. John is muting. John is typing. Play-by-play of trying to get people on the line for this show. I know it's wonderfully exciting. It's the best we can do at times.
Yes.
We could be having a few issues in getting Mr. Conti on the line. We are efforting. And we will get him shortly, so stay tuned. Mike will jump in like Jarrett does off the top rope. Some of the scores while we were waiting on Mike. Lacked passion, didn't feel it today. 6, 7.2, 6.9.
It was business because I was thinking that Mike Conti was going to be joining us.
7.3, a cafecito con leche out of 10. I think that's pretty good, Modiflow.
How does that translate? I can't quite translate liquid into grades.
Mike Conti is now with us. What is up, Mike?
I hope I didn't do anything wrong.
No. I think it was on Matteo this time around.
Yeah, well, Matteo Mateo bats about 500, it seems.
Yeah, he'd been on a roll for a while, but you have one that gets a little slow. It happens from time to time. It's raining outside. Mateo might have been distracted.
It definitely does happen. Mateo is forgiven.
Yes. So we've got a lot of MLS kind of stuff to get into. We were just talking earlier. I'd like to get your take on this. The rumors that are coming out of Europe and especially Italy about a former MVP in MLS coming back to the LA Galaxy and playing for a former coach, Sebastian Giovinco to the LA Galaxy. What would you think about that one?
How old is he now?
33.
Yeah. Hey, look, I mean, he obviously had a lot of success with Vanny in Toronto. I kind of lost track of him a little bit last season after he left MLS, so I would have to defer to you guys and probably Nick Alifi.
Well, he went to Saudi Arabia, did okay. He's not great, but he's done okay. He's done well.
Do you think he still has anything left in the tank?
Yeah, I don't know how much, but yeah, he's got a little something. And when you start to break down that team a little bit, if they added him, they could play a 3-5-2 and not have to make a whole lot of other additions. If they play a 4-2-3-1, they've got work to do because they don't have anything out wide right now. If they played the 3-5-2 that we saw Vanny play a lot in Toronto, where Giovinco was playing off of Josie in that situation, if he's playing off of Chicharito, then that could work. And I think that might protect him a little bit. He's not going to be the number 10 exactly. He's going to be in a very free role.
Yeah. Yeah, no, hey, look, I think if you're Galaxy right now, you're kind of trying to do anything.
Yeah.
You had a massively disappointing 2020. You sacked your coach. You have now, I think, made one of the better coaching hires in this league. You're a big, ambitious club. You've got to try anything right now to get back to where you want to be. If they feel like Giovinco is going to be a guy who can do that and they can get him at a fair price where it's good business for the club, the MLS is certainly better, I think, with Sebastian Giovinco in it than not in it. But I just don't know, because I have not seen him, and I'm trusting you, I just don't know at what level he's playing at right now because I haven't seen him in person in 2 years.
So when it comes to teams in the 2021 season, Mike, I know that we were getting into, a couple days ago, we were getting into teams that we were looking forward to seeing in the 2021 season because of what they've been doing in the offseason. We talked about Pochettino coming to Austin. Jason has been really excited about seeing Pochettino as a part of Austin.
Thomas Pochettino. Let's be very
yeah.
clear, not get anybody confused.
Yeah, Thomas Pochettino.
Young Argentine midfielder from Talleres.
So when it comes to teams with the transactions that they're making in the offseason, when we get into training camps, get into the season, who is in your spot shadow that you're going to be looking at? Who are you going to be excited to look at for the 2021 season out of the blocks?
Wow. These are signings that were made in 2020, so forgive me on that, but Eric Lopez, I think, is right at the very top of my list, and I know he did play in December, so it's not technically anything new from 2021, so forgive me a little bit on that. But that's one that stands out to me. I just think he's someone who can be someone who could turn into a really good player in this league very, very quickly if he's utilized in the way that best enhances his abilities. I think Atlanta United has built a team that's going to be fast and play free and wide, and Lopez certainly fits into that profile. And I want to be really careful about not totally overdoing it with expectations on him. I think he's earned the right to, have the benefit of the doubt when it comes to patience and expectations. But I think Lopez has a really, really high ceiling on a club that has a really, really high ceiling. And also to confess, I'm not as astute as you guys are on what other clubs have done around the league and some of the players that have been brought in from other parts of the world. I'm just not as astute on that. I've looked more at Eric Lopez than most others. So that's part of why I say Lopez as well. But I just think Lopez is someone who has a real possibility of being a newcomer of the year type player in MLS in 2021, provided that he gets matches, provided that he fits with what Heinze wants to do.
There's a few teams that when we get into preseason, and I would assume you're going to have a lot of teams playing games behind closed doors, probably with them available for the fans to see to start building the excitement. Like when we get into that, and you're then trying to find streams of all the teams in the league, DC's one that I will definitely be looking at to see what Losada does straight out of the gate, how he has them wanting to play. Haven't seen a whole lot of additions, but that change of manager, how does it change how they want to play? That'll be a big one for me. Houston, with a lot of guys from around the league coming into Houston, but Maxi Urruti, Fafa Pico, Tyler Pasher from Indy 11 and USL. If you hit on one of those to give you more in the attack, okay, Houston could be a team to watch. The Galaxy under Vanny, how can he fix it when they've still got some holes? Miami and Neville, what does he do? How does he set them up? How does that look? There's a lot of interesting preseason kind of storylines going in. You've got the teams that were good last year, and can they be better? But you've got a lot of other teams that have either changed a manager or made some moves on players that you want to see. And you've mentioned it, Austin. I think you're pretty big on how Austin has built. I am too, and I want to see how that one comes together. And if they get this number 10 from Teixeira, a young midfielder who was linked with a move to Boca at one point, if he comes to Austin instead to go in with a young team, Josh Wolf could have a fun team to watch.
I agree. And there's a little bit of fun with the mystery that surrounds it as well. So I think what has happened this offseason is something, Jason, that you kind of prophesized that MLS has taken advantage, and MLS clubs really have taken advantage of the financial position, the financial advantages that they are in right now compared to other clubs and other leagues around the world. And a lot of MLS clubs, not just Atlanta, not just Austin, potentially LA Galaxy, a lot of MLS clubs have conducted very, very good business. And now we're going to get to see that translate onto the pitch, hopefully starting in April. And from a standpoint of newcomers and quality newcomers, this is one of the more intriguing, exciting off seasons that Major League Soccer has had maybe ever. Certainly in the last couple of years, but maybe ever. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch once we finally get to the point where we're playing matches, whenever that will be.
Yeah, and we mentioned and we kept an eye on Columbus. If Columbus is going to repeat, they bring in somebody like BWP to help out because that Jossie Zardes is going to be gone for national team duty, so you bring in somebody like that to help you out.
The move in Columbus is Kevin Molino.
Yeah.
That's the move in Columbus because BWP will be a backup and come in when Zardes is out. He's not as good as Zardes. Molino's better than Luis Diaz and better than Yunus Mokhtar. They've gotten better, I think, with that Molino one. I didn't see that one coming at all.
Mm-mm. And then you got a team like Nashville. How does Nashville come back after their 2021 with the run that they made? Their 2020 run that they made coming here in 2021. So those are two more that I'm looking at for how do you repeat and the moves that Columbus has made and with what Gary Smith is trying to build in addition to all those things.
Yeah, I'm with you. Credit to Columbus for staying aggressive. And look, I mean, this is going to be an exciting year for the Crew. They're going to have a new stadium open at some point this season. They certainly have a lot of momentum from what they just accomplished. And I love the fact that kind of reminds me of Atlanta United a little bit in 2019 where, yeah, they won the cup, but they're trying to stay aggressive, which is what you have to do. The league has gotten too competitive now where you can't just win a cup and stand pat. You've got to go out and do things. So I think it's a real tip of the cap to Columbus for being as aggressive as they were.
Yeah, on the flip side, the Supporters' Shield winners, Philadelphia. And it's not a negative because this is the business model. You know, you're going to develop players, you're going to sell them when the time is right. It was right for Brendan Aronson. It was right for Mark McKenzie. Aronson, you've got Anthony Fontana. Okay, another young, attacking, creative player. He's shown good things in glimpses, but can he drive the car? And for McKenzie, it's probably going to be Jack Elliott and Jacob Glesnes, who you've had them both there, so they're not new, but neither one's McKenzie. Can they stay where they've been after these sales?
Yeah, again, great questions, and I can't fault Philadelphia for conducting the business that they conducted. I think Philadelphia's in a good spot. I think Philadelphia has a lot of smart people running the club right now and running the academy. And Philadelphia is one of the clubs that I think you have to look at over the last 5 years that has probably done more with their academy than probably 3/4 of this league. So what's that pipeline looking like going forward? But it's the type of business that I can't fault Philadelphia for conducting.
Right.
What they do now going forward with the payoff is going to be, I think, a revelation, and will probably tell us a lot about Philadelphia's ambition going forward.
Yeah, I'm fascinated to see what Philly does. There may be the one from a negative perspective that I'll be watching the most early on to see how it comes together, replacing those two guys.
Yeah.
When it comes to the new managers, guys, who do you think is under the most pressure coming into this season?
Among new managers?
Yeah, new or shifted. Like Vanny going from Toronto to LA to me would count. Neville in Miami would count, but who do you think's under the most pressure in 2021?
It might be Neville because I don't know how patient that board is in Miami. I don't know how patient Beckham is, and obviously Miami had a very quick trigger on someone who I thought was a good coach in Diego Alonso. It might be Neville. I think Neville also probably has the most to prove for reasons that we've talked about before. He doesn't really have experience managing at the club level. So he's got a lot to prove, and I don't know how patient the board will be in Miami with him. That's a very, very ambitious club that expected to have immediate success this year, and they were surpassed by a team that expanded and built more pragmatically in Nashville. So I think there's a tremendous amount of pressure on Neville. I think there's always going to be pressure on Heinze because, again, you've got a very passionate, engaged fan base here in Atlanta that expects a winner right away. I hope there will be patience with him. I think from a standpoint of Arthur Blank and Darren Eales, there will be patience, but that doesn't necessarily speak to the fan base. Vanny, there will be pressure because the Galaxy are a big club. But honestly, who I think might feel the most pressure is Chris Armas, because I think the window is on the verge of shutting in Toronto when you look at how long in the tooth that roster is and the ages of their key players on that team. I think it's a pretty small window for Toronto to remain the type of competitive club that we've seen over the last 5 or 6 years. And Armas might have to get it done pretty quickly. I think, as far as job security is concerned, he won't have anything to worry about there. But as far as having a viable team that can contend for a Supporters' Shield and an MLS Cup, without knowing what Toronto's long-term plan is from a player standpoint, I think it could be kind of a urgent situation for Chris Armas. And on top of it, you've got, I don't know about you guys, reading that press release from the league the other day, it sounds like Toronto is not going to be playing in Toronto, at least at the start of the season.
At least at the start, yeah. Or
So,
unless they do the internal Canadian competition for a while to try to buy them some time.
Which they could, and they absolutely could do that to buy time, but it's going to be tough. It's one more obstacle that they're going to have to overcome. So, but honestly, I think all the new hires feel a degree of pressure to some standpoint. And the Neville thing is really fascinating to me in Miami because that's the wild card. You don't know how patient they will be 1 year after they sacked a really good manager and 1 year after Paul McDonough took a look around and said, you know what, I'd rather go back to Atlanta. It really does make you wonder.
Let's broaden it out a little bit, because as I've been kind of starting to look at teams and play with projections a little bit and looking at lineups, I think the Eastern Conference is brutal this year. The West feels about like it was last year. I don't know if there's any massive changes. The East, I think you've got potentially 12 of the teams in the conference that could make the playoffs easily. And that's, that's kind of ruling out DC with a jump with a manager who's going to bring a system in Losada, and a jump from Cincinnati, just because I have no idea what Cincinnati is going to be able to pull off. But let's broaden it out. Instead of just the new guys, what managers walk into training camp day one and sit down and say, ooh, that seat's a little toasty day one. This is going to be a little tough. Like, you go through the East, Curtin's fine. Porter's fine. Nothing, they're good. Pareja's fine. Ronnie Dyla?
Yeah.
Maybe a little warm.
Yeah.
A little bit. I think New York City's not going to be happy with a fifth place finish in the East. I don't think that's going to be acceptable. I don't know if they're better than fifth place, but I think his seat's warm. Struber's new, so he's fine. I think Armas will have some pressure, but not to that extent day one. Gary Smith is fine. No concerns with him. Bruce Arena's fine. Thierry Henry? Club de Foot Montreal? Mike, do you think there's any pressure on Thierry Henry in Montreal?
There should be.
I think so too.
Yeah.
There should be.
Some.
I don't think they performed incredibly well in 2020. I mean, really, where they looked the best was in Champions League, to be quite frank with you. So
yeah,
there should be pressure. There absolutely should be pressure on Thierry Henry.
Yeah, I think there's some. I don't think it's as much as like Dyla. I think he's got more, because I don't know what the expectation is for Montreal. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there's some. I think there has to be some, because I mean, Joey Saputo's not putting in the money he's putting in and doing what he's doing to be ninth in the East.
Yeah. No, I agree. And just trying to broaden it from there. I mean, other managers in the East that could feel pressure. I don't think Jim Curtin will feel any pressure. I mean, Philadelphia's been a good story the last 2 years, and one could argue maybe they've even overachieved a tad bit the last 2 years. So Curtin's fine. Bruce Arena's Bruce Arena. Yeah. Boy, and no problems in Nashville. They've obviously overachieved. And then you've got a lot of new guys who are going to get the benefit of time and patience, I would think. So by default,
by default, it's Henry and
maybe Henry is and Ronnie Dyla. But I have high expectations for New York City. I expect way more out of them than Montreal. But I would think by default, and maybe it just speaks to a really good situation in the Eastern Conference where you have 14 really strong clubs right now. And I really believe that. I think all 14 clubs in the maybe outside of Cincinnati, but Cincinnati will be better. So if you want to take Cincinnati out of it, I mean, 13 out of the 14 clubs in the East should go into this season feeling like they are at least going to be better, if not playoff teams. So with all that in mind, I think it would be really, really hard to point to any manager in the East other than Thierry Henry and say, his seat might be a little bit tepid going into the year.
Dyla's the one for me. He's the one that I think he's got the hottest seat in the East, because I think he's got a team that can compete, but they're a little flawed, and I feel like the expectations might not be realistic. Let's see what they do. I mean, we're not done with what their roster looks like. They could make the additions that fix some of their flaws, but I'll go Dyla as the hottest seat in the East outside of the new guys. I'm with you on Neville. I think Neville's. I think Miami's seat stays hot. I don't think it ever gets cool. It just doesn't change. Even if they start winning, I don't think it changes until you're winning trophies. In the West, Vermes is his seat is always ice cold. He's good. Yeah. He can stay there as long as he wants, I think. Schmetzer, ice cold. Gio, the year he had, third, I think he's fine.
Yeah.
I think Savaresi's fine in Portland. I think Adrian Heath is fine in Minnesota. Robin Frazier in Colorado, probably okay. Lucci's fine in Dallas. Bob Bradley, no problems there, I don't think, although maybe there should be.
Yeah.
Almeida, his seat might have a spring attached to it because he's linked with every job that ever pops up. I don't know if it's San Jose putting a hot seat on him. I think Vancouver's seat is hot with Mark Dos Santos, and that's probably the biggest one in the West.
Yeah.
Yeah, and let's go back to Gio for a second because I think he's in the same boat as Armas. Different in that he's been with his club longer than Armas, obviously. But, again, the window's getting tight in Portland.
Good point.
And you've got a roster that's maturing and getting older, and it Gio's managerial abilities are proven. It's not an indictment of him at all. It's just the team that he's been given. So he's got to go out. He's got to win. Not that he's in danger of getting sacked, but this might be his best chance to win. So it's very reminiscent of Armas. And I think Portland and Toronto can both contend this year, unquestionably. But beyond this year, what does it look like?
Let me bring up LAFC here for a second. I mean, how much more patience should the front office and the 972 owners have if Bob Bradley continues to get into the playoffs but doesn't get to the promised land and start bringing in titles? And yeah, I know that they made a run deep in the CONCACAF Champions League this past season, but how much more rope does Bob Bradley get here?
I think he's got a lot. I think he's got a lot of rope because he's gotten to a conference final. He's gotten to a CONCACAF final. Can it be better? Yeah, I absolutely think it can. I think he's got to be, at times, a little more pragmatic and not as stubborn. But this is the year that you want somebody like Bob Bradley because the rumors out of Uruguay are that Brian Rodriguez is going to Europe.
Right.
Diego Rossi's got to get sold this window or next. Like, you've got to cash in on him here at some point. I just don't see him there for the whole season. So you're going to have to bring in new faces. You want continuity. I think this is the kind of year that you hired Bob Bradley for, to rebuild it. So maybe that first era of LAFC is just over. You know, maybe that's it for that group, and you got to a conference final, you got to a CONCACAF final, but that was the best you could do. Without COVID, maybe they're better. Maybe this year would have been very different without COVID. If you had Carlos Vela the whole time, you know, maybe it's a whole different situation. But it's time to change it because you've got to sell Rodriguez and Rossi while the iron's hot. You've got to bring that money back in and then go reinvest. That's why you need Bob Bradley.
Yeah, I mean, it would feel awfully harsh if LAFC made a move on Bob Bradley unless something just totally unforeseen happened this year. I don't think you can necessarily hold Bradley accountable for the issues that have hurt LAFC in the last 2 years. Most recently completed season, it was the injury to Vela.
Right.
And the season before, it was lack of depth. You know, he's not buying the groceries. He's making the recipe. So it would feel awfully harsh to me to put Bob Bradley in any kind of danger, certainly going into the season. And even if they were to have an off season, it just feels very, very harsh to me that he would be in that step.
Yeah, I feel like he's I feel like he's got that job as long as he wants it, basically, with LAFC. Unless things completely tank, and I don't see that happening because they're going to have the money to have talent, and he's a good manager, you know, but can he get to the next level? Can he bring trophies? I think he can.
So then is this more on Thorington than it would be on Bradley?
No, it's not. It's not on anybody. I mean, it's not like LAFC's been a failure, John. Like, you know, they've been really good, but only one team wins trophies at the end of competitions. They've been right there. They've been really good. If Atlanta hadn't won MLS Cup in year 2, you'd be looking at LAFC as one of the best ever launches to a team, and they still should be looked that way. but they haven't won the trophy yet. They have gotten to a CONCACAF final, and it was a weird CONCACAF, and they benefited from single-game series in the quarters and the semis. They didn't have to go play in Mexico. Sure, you only play the tournaments in front of you. You got to a final. You nearly won it. They've been really, really good. I don't think there's it's not a problem. There's not any massive mistake that they've made. They just haven't won the big one.
And like I said, that was why I wanted to bring up LAFC as a part of the discussion, because they haven't won the big one. That was what I was getting at.
It's that balance, Mike. And I mean, you mentioned it when we talked about depth. Like, Bradley has the guys he has. He's not going out and getting all the players. But you have to make a decision in a cap league. Are you going to go for the high-priced, best 11, maybe 12 that you can get, and then have a bunch of kids and expect them to learn on the job? Or are you going to try to get the best 16, 17, 18 you can get and spread that cap around a larger number of players? It's a tough decision.
It really is, especially in MLS, because I think we've seen firsthand over the last year the impact that designated players have on this league. And when you don't have designated players playing well or injured or available or whatever, your team is in real trouble. However, I think when you get into a postseason situation and you're weathering some of the intricacies of the MLS postseason, which are tricky, such as, international windows on either side of decision day and heck, even in the COVID era, potential quarantines that go along with it, and having to, commission charter flights to get guys back in for playoff games. It is a nice luxury once you get into a do or die postseason situation to have, a little bit more depth and a little bit more of an option if you need it off your bench. So I don't know what the right or wrong answer is on that.
The perfect situation is what happened with Columbus. Where,
both.
Yeah. Well, we talked about it all year. It's like central midfield. If they have injuries, it's going to be a problem because you're turning to Sebastian Berhalter, you're turning to Aiden Morris. It's going to be a problem. It was for them in the season a little bit, where they had that dip when Nagbe was hurt, when Zellaround was hurt, and you had to deal with it. But what did that end up doing when they needed Aiden Morris in the final? He delivered in a massive way, and they weren't paying him a bunch, but they developed him over time. If you can do that, you can navigate the MLS cap.
Yeah, agreed. Which, again, is, to bring it all back to Atlanta, that's why I'm really glad we've got Paul McDonough back in here, who I think has a really good understanding of that. And he and Carlos and Darren and everyone else in the front office hopefully we'll be able to navigate this in a successful way, and this is going to be a good season for Atlanta United. I mean, if the reports are true about Lopez taking a supplemental spot, I think that's Exhibit A of Atlanta United being very, very crafty within the rules and within, what they can and cannot do to bring in an established player who I think can help the team, but also in a very low-risk type of way where he's not going to take up anything other than a supplemental roster charge.
You weren't going to get Bradley Wright Phillips for a supplemental roster spot, and if you can go get Lisandro Lopez for a supplemental roster spot, yes, an international slot, that part is true. I'll take that trade-off. I'll take that trade-off for it. It's going to be fun. We got a lot of stuff to talk about on Stoppage Time later today. With there are some rumors in the Atlanta United world. I'm sure the fans are going to be asking about Eric Remedi, about Franco Ibarra. We'll have plenty to talk about. Maybe we'll get more rumors between now and then, Mike.
Two rumors that seem very much linked to each other, don't they?
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah. So, we'll be on at 2 o'clock on the 92.9 The Game Facebook page. And lots happened since Stoppage Time last week, just with Atlanta United across the league. So we'll go through all that at 2 o'clock.
Awesome. Thanks for hanging out, Mike. See you in a little bit.
Okay. See you guys.
Be good.
Make sure you're following Mike on Twitter, Mike Conti929. His Twitter is functioning, and he has quite a few followers.
Yes, he does.
Yes, he does. Maybe he can share some with you. Probably not.
Here, I will give you followers.
I don't
think it's not. I don't think that it's a tradable resource.
No, you need Mike to give you an endorsement on Twitter. Is what you need.
cut a promo on stoppage time. About
Please
sending
go
followers.
follow John
Yes.
Nelson on Twitter. Please. He needs followers.
There you go.
We got a bunch of different things to get into, but let's start with the Twitters.
All right, here's the Twitters. Nathan Pugh wanted to know if it was a legit second yellow for Zlatan.
Yeah, it was. You can't. I think he should have been red carded the first time. Not just for what he said. I mean, he went in like kind of with his head towards Lukaku. I think he could have been sent off right then. I think both of them could have been. You're already on a very orange card. You do anything that's even close, you're going to get sent off. I think it was the right call.
And then Nathan said he didn't have anything else early on before the show started, so he posted a video of a moose slipping on the ice in Yellowstone for us as a public service.
Was that Liverpool's attack lately? I think it was.
Yeah, I think it was.
They scored a couple in the FA Cup, and then the defense let them down. But
Bruno
man,
Fernandes.
they got to score consistently. That free kick from Bruno Fernandes. Oh man, good grief.
Antino is in, and he goes, Big Sam, little old sicky.
Oh, Big Sammy. Not so good. City hit the post like in about 90 seconds. Then they scored. Then they scored again. Then they scored again. Then they scored again. Yeah, it was bad. It was very, very bad. And I thought I had been sold on Big Sam, the defensive genius, and how he comes in and saves teams. I mean, he told everybody how you do it. You just come in and you put numbers behind the ball and you just defend and you just defend and you defend some more. And then when those 9 guys just stand around and watch other players slice them up.
Yeah.
Whew,
and you stand around thinking that that the offside flag is up means you stop.
Yeah, it was a mistake. It was by the AR. But no. Saying afterwards, because you're trying to find something to hang your hat on. Everybody stops when they see an offside flag. All that rubbish about play to the whistle is rubbish. It's nonsense. It's actually not, because the flag doesn't stop anything, Big Sam. You know these rules. Come on, man. You're just looking for something after you yelled at your team for like an hour after the game, which you needed to yell at your team for an hour after the game. They look pretty pathetic, and it's not all Big Sam's fault. You know, is it because the home fans aren't in the building yelling and screaming at the players? I'd hope they don't need that motivation to try to save themselves, but maybe that's it. It's bad. They don't look motivated, and whether it's they don't want to play for him, whether he's not connecting to him, or they just aren't performing under pressure, I don't know. But he's never been in this boat where he comes in to rescue a team and he keeps trying to throw the lasso out there and can't grab anything. It's horrible at the moment. 1 win, 1 draw, 5 losses. They've scored 5 goals in those 7 games. That feels about like Big Sam. They've conceded 22. That's horrendous.
Oh.
That's absolutely horrendous under Big Sam. First manager since Chris Ramsey at QPR in March of 2015 to lose his first 4 home Premier League games in charge of a club. Now, it doesn't feel like home. I get it. But he was brought in to save it. He's not saving it. They're scoring less goals per game than Slaven Bilic was. They're conceding at a goal plus per game more than Slaven was doing, and their points per game is about the same. They've gotten worse defensively, and that's why they're worse. It's just horrendous.
Their next 2 are Fulham and Sheffield United.
Well, they got to beat Fulham. I mean, that's a total relegation 6-pointer, right? You know, we talked about Fulham's side of it yesterday. Fulham can save themselves with a couple of winnable games here. They can at least get into the conversation of saving themselves. West Brom, it's critical. If they lose to Fulham, West Brom's done. They're not going to fire Big Sam because why? I mean, it's not going to really change anything at this point. They'll be too far down at that point. If they lose to Fulham, they have to it's a final for them. It's completely and utterly a final for them.
Tafka, and this might be something that we end up doing tomorrow, Tafka was wondering if we could do a mock selection for FIFA host cities.
Okay. Oh, we can do that because Johannes actually asked about that too. He said, how would you rank the U.S. potential host cities? I haven't jumped into like their bids, so we're not seeing everything. I don't know exactly what the training facilities in each city would look like. That's part of the decision. I don't know the hotel and airport space and, like that kind of stuff, the travel part of it. I don't know all that off the top of my head. But let's jump into it. So let me get the list, because I've seen a few people try to rank them. Pull up the list. You pull up the list and we'll go through. You got the list. All right. So the
23 candidate host cities.
Okay, we're not 23 for the U.S. or 23 in total. Total, and we already know the 3 Canadian and 3 Mexican teams are. You're looking at 10 out of 17.
10 out of 17
for the U.S. Okay, we will rank them to start. Just first pass through in A, B, and C categories.
Atlanta.
A.
Baltimore. C.
I'm going to go C.
Boston.
B.
Cincinnati.
C.
Dallas.
A.
Denver.
C.
BC. Houston.
B.
Kansas City.
B.
LA.
A.
Miami.
A.
Nashville.
C.
New York, New Jersey.
A.
Orlando.
B.
Philly.
B.
San Francisco Bay Area.
B.
Seattle.
B.
Washington.
I think Washington's over Baltimore, so I'll go B here too.
So you've got 5 in the A: Atlanta, Dallas, LA, Miami, and New York.
Okay, so this is where we work through. So 5, okay, done. Okay, they're in. So that's 5 spots. So we got 5 to play with.
Right.
So then what did I have in the Bs?
You had, let's see, I'm trying to, you had Boston as a B or a C?
B.
All right, so Boston is a B. Denver, was it Denver a B or a C?
You didn't rank them, did you?
I ranked the A's because we're going through
Dios mío. Okay, so then we'll forget the B's and the C's right now. So let's go back through it. We got 5 spots. Run again.
Atlanta, Dallas, LA, Miami, and New York.
We got those. The rest. So there's 11, and we got 5.
12.
Okay.
Baltimore's a C. Boston, you said, was a B.
Don't worry about that. Let's just work through for 5 spots because you didn't write it down.
Cincinnati was a C.
Stop with the B and the C, John. Stop. Run through who we have left.
Baltimore. Boston.
Boston feels pretty good. I'm going to put them over here for now.
Cincinnati.
Okay.
Denver.
Okay.
Houston.
I'm going to put them in for now.
Kansas City.
Not sold yet.
Nashville.
Not sold yet.
Orlando.
Ooh. Got Miami. You could have teams in there. Really close, but not yet.
Philly.
Yes, I think Philly gets in.
San Francisco Bay Area.
We don't have anybody else on the West Coast. It would really make sense to have...
Well, it's San Francisco or Seattle.
That's what I was getting to. It would really make sense to have San Francisco in more than Seattle, but you had them last time around. You didn't have Seattle. I am going to go for variety and say Seattle gets it instead of San Francisco.
DC.
So we got 1 spot left. Who do we have in right now?
Atlanta, Dallas, LA, Miami, New York, Boston, Houston, Philadelphia, Seattle.
Okay. Who's competing?
We have 8 teams for 8 cities for 1 spot. Baltimore, Cincinnati, Denver, Kansas City, Nashville, Orlando, Bay Area, DC.
I think the way we did it, and this isn't necessarily how the order will come down to, but if that's the way I picked it out, if I'm running this and that's what I get, and I got one spot left, what it comes down to for me there is Orlando, Nashville, and Washington. Because, and I would probably rule Orlando out because they had it last time. Nashville, you'd be able to pair up with group games with Atlanta. You'd be able to kind of think travel-wise a little bit there. That's a big selling point. Washington's the capital of the country, and you normally see that with games. I don't think Baltimore gets it over Washington, so I think Baltimore's in a bad way to begin with. I think Philly definitely gets it this time around. They didn't last time. The local organizing committee was really unorganized, which is a problem if you're an organizing committee. And I believe, if I remember something I saw on Twitter, it will be the 2026 go backwards to 1776. And what is that math?
Is it 250? Is that the
Yes.
sesquicentennial?
Yes. That's a pretty big selling point for Philadelphia. And if you have Philly and Washington, then you have another one that comes together. I think it's Washington out of that. Nashville could be the surprise. They really could get in over somebody else. But that's my power ranking of it right now. So the teams, the cities that are on the outside looking in, they've got to make a more compelling case than the 10 that I picked, at least in my mind. So who do I have missing out?
You have Baltimore out. You have Cincinnati out. You have Denver out.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Kansas City out.
Mm-hmm.
That's 6. And so then San Francisco Bay Area would be your 7th.
As out, yeah. I think Seattle gets it over them. I think it's Seattle and San Francisco for a spot. I think it's Washington and Baltimore for a spot. Boston would be the other one that would maybe be one of the more precarious ones. Johannes says he doesn't have Boston. If Boston's out, it's got to be like a Nashville or a Cincinnati that make a more compelling case. And I could see it. I could definitely see that. I think Boston gets in because of the size, because of the international community in the area. They did really well with the games last time around. I think Boston gets it, but that's who you got to jump. If you're Cincinnati, if you're Kansas City, if you're Nashville, if you're Orlando, you've got to make a more compelling case. Boston feels like the one that could get knocked out.
Tafka had D.C. He had Atlanta, L.A., Dallas, New York, New Jersey, and D.C. guaranteed. He said the other 5 were toss-ups to varying degrees.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some tough spots in there. There's definitely some that are going to be challenges. But the first 5 I had, I mean, I think the finals in New York or in New Jersey. I think the semis are in Atlanta and either Dallas or L.A. And I think the other one gets a quarter for sure. I think Miami is a done deal for sure. They wanted to be in Miami in '94, but the Marlins jumped in and were using the stadium, so they couldn't. It's funny. I mean, you go back in time and you study that '94 bid. Miami, when they got the bid in '88, Miami was like written down in almost permanent marker that they would have the final. FIFA wanted the final in Miami in the worst way, and then Miami ended up not even getting games. Orlando came out of nowhere in '94 to get games. So Miami, they won't get the final now because I think New York gets it. I don't think LA gets it again. Dallas would be a total wild card with the venue, but I don't think they get the final. I think they get a semi probably, yeah. But LA could get a semi. I mean, the semis could be LA Atlanta. They could be LA Dallas. I think Atlanta's got as good of a shot for a semi as anybody. And the main reason I'm saying that, and yes, I'm biased, is FIFA, when they came to visit cities during the bid process, and this doesn't always carry over because things change. I don't think they'll change in Atlanta's case. They came to Atlanta to visit. It was one of the only American cities that they came to visit. That means FIFA's pretty high on Atlanta as not just getting games, but more than that. I think Atlanta is trying to get the International Broadcast Center as well, and that would be another element that would be huge. That almost got Atlanta games in '94, but Bobby Dodd was not looked at as a good venue at all, even for first-round games, so they didn't get the World Broadcast Center either. I think they could get both this time around and get a semifinal.
And having the IBC basically say the World Congress Center right next to a venue just down the street.
Just makes total sense.
Tafka, in our Eric Rometti discussion, according to Transfermarkt, we paid $1.93 million. His value is almost $800,000 more than it was when we got him. He thinks $2 to $2.5 million is achievable, maybe more, possibly enough to get the GAM, I think, but getting him to the right place is the biggest desire. I trust the front office.
Independiente doesn't have that money. You're not getting 2 or 2.5 from Independiente. Independiente owes quite a few different people money at the moment. That's why Cecilio Dominguez is going to Austin. So if that's the right spot, get him to the right spot. If that's it, do that. If you can get some great... If you're going into the last 6 months, you won't get it either. If that's the case, and this is almost the end of his deal, you won't get much of anything. I don't think you'll get the allocation money on him, and that's okay. Do right by the player, and if Independiente is a good landing spot, then that's where he needs to be.
A couple of folks have linked to the Sports Business Journal article that came out from John Oron this morning, where Sinclair and Bally's are unveiling the new names and logos for the 19 RSNs today.
What you think?
I mean, if Sinclair's about making the Benjamins, so I get it. And so according to Sports Business
Everybody's
Journal,
about making the Benjamins, John, even me.
Sinclair is shutting down the part-time regional networks, Fox Sports Tennessee and Carolinas, and they're basically going to be rolled into Bally's Sports, insert geography here. So it's Bally Sports Southeast, which is the Atlanta, Georgia footprint, and then the Bally Sports South, which would be Grizzlies, Predators, Hornets, Canes, that kind of stuff. So it's basically Bally's Sports instead of Fox Sports, insert geography.
Yeah, but are they going to overlap like they do in Atlanta? I think they have to.
Yeah.
Because you get both in Atlanta. You don't get both in other places.
Right. Since this is the head end for the network, you would get both here.
I would think so, yeah. And that's how you can split Braves and Hawks at times and Atlanta United and figure that out. And yeah, Sports Business Journal, you forgot the MLS logos on that.
Yeah.
That's a big miss there, guys.
Mm-hmm.
The name, I don't care. They had to get away from the Fox Sports name because it's not Fox Sports anymore. So they had to do something. That's fine. I don't care. They're getting money for the title sponsorship. That's great. The Tennessee and Carolinas ones were, like part-time because it would be all Fox Sports South or Southeast programming except for when they had very localized programming. So that's fine. That doesn't really change anything dramatically. That's all great. Sounds good. Get it on all the different services. Do that part. That's the part that needs to get done. The name, I could care less. Make your money, but now get it on the services, get deals done, and get it done ahead of baseball. I thought basketball would drive it, but it didn't. Baseball has to. They've got to be in more places than they are right now for baseball season. There's just no way around it.
Ricky Ricardo, when we were talking about guilty pleasures in hour number 1, guilty pleasure for Ricky would have to be pretty much anything action sports related. Tuned into virtually every X Games, regular and winter.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I went through a period where I was watching more of that. I like the winter stuff. It's funny, like Winter Olympics, maybe it's just because I've never done any winter sports in my life. I probably get sucked in more in the Winter Olympics than the summer. I watch a lot of the Summer Olympics. I watch a lot of sports that I don't watch outside of those,
Curling is a guilty pleasure for me during the Winter Olympics.
Well, yeah, I mean, curling's a guilty pleasure for, I think, a lot of people during the Winter Olympics. But I'll watch almost everything in the Winter Olympics. In the summer, I don't watch as much of a variety. You know, I'll watch the soccer, obviously. I'll watch basketball in the Summer Olympics. I'll watch track because it's a big deal. I get into both. I get into the figure skating on the winter, and I get into the gymnastics on the summer. Like, I'll watch those. I don't watch them any other time, but the way they're packaged, the way the stories are told, you get sucked into it, and you watch those. The Olympics in general is definitely a guilty pleasure for me, and sports that I would never watch outside of it. X Games stuff, I like the winter ones more, and I think it's just because like I don't ski, I don't bobsled, I don't luge, I don't do any of that, and I'm like blown away by it.
And doing all of the jumping and the whoop-de-doos with winter hardware for
jumping
me.
And the whoop-de-doos.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's the thing that you ride in the winter when you're trying to go across the snow at a real high rate of speed? What's that?
A snowmobile?
That, yeah. When you're doing like the 360s on the snowmobiles and you're doing all the tricks like you do for Winter X Games, like you do with the BMX tricks with the snowmobiles. That for me is, you look at them and you go, okay, you're like half past crazy, but I'll watch that stuff.
I like the bobsled. Maybe it's because I love cool
bobsled and luge for me is just that's just nuts.
Snowboarding is also very cool.
Yes. Tom Russo, the Airborne DJ, one of his guilty pleasures is watching episodes of Pasta Grannies on YouTube. He bets Nick Leafy would enjoy it as well if he hasn't already seen it.
I've never heard of this, but now I'm intrigued.
Pasta Grannies.
Pasta Grannies. Thank you, Tom Russo, I think. Yeah. I'm almost afraid to click because maybe this gets out of hand, but we'll see.
And then in the discussion that we were having about Boris Johnson and the front of jerseys, Michael Head couldn't recall alcohol sponsors on EPL jerseys on the boards, but not on jerseys.
On the boards.
And Alex Pacine, Newcastle Brown Ale and McEwen's for Newcastle, Carlsberg for Liverpool.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. It's there. It's just I don't think you can outlaw one and allow the other. I think you have to worry about the addiction issues on both sides.
Yeah.
Okay, other stuff on the board before we finish with the news dump. Angel Di Maria, Tottenham is chasing him, potentially trying to get him on a free this summer. Upamecano, reportedly Thomas Tuchel, who will be on the bench for Chelsea. It's at the top of his list of targets, so add Chelsea to that race. The Eric Garcia stuff is turning into a farce right now because you've got on one side, everybody's expected him to go to Barcelona. He developed at Barca. He went to Manchester City. He's going to be available on a free. There's reports that he's already signed a deal. He's ready to go to Barca, to the point that Victor Font, one of the presidential candidates, said, we've already figured this out. We can bring him in now for, I think it's like $5 million. He would come in and play and not be paid this season to help make the finances work. We need him right now. We want to push it right now and get him in now. Let's do it now. Also, on the other side, Mundo Deportivo is reporting that now Arsenal is like, well, wait a minute. We wouldn't mind having this guy. Barcelona has no money to spend. We could give Manchester City some money now and bring him in now. But I don't think they do because I don't think Manchester City sells him to Arsenal. So keep an eye on silliness with Eric Garcia.
Well, speaking of Barca, did you see where Joan Laporta says that PSG's pursuit of Messi is disrespectful and he wants FIFA to intervene?
Yes. FIFA's not going to intervene. I don't think PSG said anything that is incorrect here. Joan Laporta said it is disrespectful to Barca that clubs like PSG publicly say they're going to sign Messi. I don't think PSG said it that way. This coming from a club state that have bypassed the rules. We cannot allow clubs and states the luxury of destabilizing another club. Joan Laporta is trying to get people riled up to win the presidential election. I think he's reaching here. I don't think PSG has said, we're going to sign Lionel Messi. Ha ha ha, you are broke. We are not. Ha ha ha.
Yeah, there's not been a Snidely Whiplash twirling of a mustache here.
We haven't heard that out of PSG. So I think he's reaching a little bit. It's a known fact. He's out of contract. You guys have talked about it, Barca. So, I mean, I think they said, of course, they'd be interested in Lionel Messi, and Manchester City said the same. So, Barca, you got bigger problems than that. Also, Sport reported today, because there were rumors in France, Canal Plus said that Messi and all his family, his wife and his kids, are taking French classes. Why would he learn French if he were going to Man City? It doesn't make sense. This is from Canal Plus. Jeffrey Garetier. Sport in Barcelona says Lionel Messi is not studying French. He's not studying it. His family's not studying French. So now you've got people checking on Lionel Messi's Babbel sign up to see if he's learning French in Babbel to get ready to go to PSG. Maybe he's learning English instead to go to Manchester City. I don't know. Craziness. Real Madrid, Sergio Ramos, Lucas Vasquez, their deals are up in the summer. There's still a lot of talk about what happens with them. Offers have been given to them. They have said no, nothing else. Real Madrid's trying to balance their books, which are not good. They've got not as much debt as Barcelona, but not that far off. But they have nowhere near as much that is coming soon. They have a little bit that's coming soon, a manageable amount. They've got a lot of debt. Some of it's down to work they've done on the stadium. There's elements there. It's not good, but it's not as bad as Barcelona. But they're not trying to spend like Barcelona has either. Now, according to El Chiringuito, which is a very entertaining program out of Spain, Bayern Munich have inquired about Sergio Ramos. I've talked to Javi Martinez. I've talked to Mark Roca about Ramos and would he fit, how much would it take, et cetera, et cetera. We did talk about the PSG offer. If PSG's offering him $15 million a year for 3 years, he's going to PSG. Nobody else is getting him if that's the offer that is actually legit. We'll have to see. But Bayern getting into the mix is very entertaining. Another MLS one we didn't talk about earlier, Valentin Castellanos of NYCFC. Palmeiras is reportedly interested in him. That was reported in Brazil. It's followed up on TIC in Argentina. That one surprised me a little bit. I like Castellanos a lot, but I didn't expect Palmeiras to be jumping for him. The financial part, and we're going to finish with this. Borussia Dortmund, they got to qualify for Champions League according to Bild. If they don't, Jadon Sancho, Gio Reyna, Rafael Guerrero, they could all be offered for sale, and you're just looking for a realistic number, because if they don't make the money from qualifying for Champions League, they're in trouble. And it doesn't look great for them to qualify. That's their goal. That's everything right now. 7th in the table. They're trying to avoid massive debt. They will listen if they don't qualify on all those players. They are leaving Erling Haaland out of that for now, but of course he's the one that people are going to really come in for the money for. Chelsea reportedly is still interested in Haaland, as Manchester United is, I believe as Manchester City is, Real Madrid, but I don't think they're going to have the money. If they don't get Mbappe, then maybe they would try to shift that money around. Keep an eye on Dortmund. If they don't qualify, it could be a fire sale, and Gio Reyna could be part of that. Now, the big picture on the financial stuff, Juventus chairman Andrea Agnelli, who has been a big part of talking about a Super League, he spoke to James Horncastle of The Athletic. He's warned that European football could lose up to 8.5 billion euro due to the COVID crisis. Deloitte had a study that said 2 billion euro hit for the combined 2 seasons of COVID, effect on financials. Agnelli says it's going to be much worse than that. The 1920 season only has 3 or 4 months of crisis, of the empty stadiums, no fans, et cetera, et cetera. 2020 and 2021, that season will probably be completely with no fans. I think in Europe that's a very safe bet. He said we're in the middle of tenders for broadcast rights. He said some have been out. The Germans have been out. They had a loss of value of 10%. They're also seeing international broadcasters not paying their dues. That has happened in some places. We know what's going on in France. They're in a massive problem. Agnelli said, and so I think this season will be much worse. So, it's going to be much worse than what we've seen there. When I look at the best information I've had so far, we're looking at a bottom line loss for the industry in the region of 6.5 to 8.5 billion euro for the combined 2 years, and about 360 clubs in need for cash injections, whether it's debt or equity within those 2 years, for an amount of 6 billion euro. Yeah, that's not good. He also threw cold water on the Super League idea, which is interesting because he's been one of the main people pushing it. He talked about the Swiss system for the Champions League, which has been floated out there. I think rugby does something with this. This Swiss idea would have all 32 or 36 teams that qualify in one division. Everybody would play 10 games. You'd play teams of varying strength according to the seeding. I can't remember how the schedule works, but it's like you play a couple teams from the A pot, a couple teams from the B pot, a couple teams from the C pot, and it's balanced out. So you're not like everybody's not playing everybody. It's not in smaller groups. It's a way to play more games with more teams and not have to worry about home and aways and stuff. The top 16 of it would qualify for the knockouts. And then they would do the ties, they say, based on the same way they do like American playoffs. 1 seed would play 16 seed, 2 would play 15, and so on. He pointed out that you need more games in Champions League, which I totally agree with, because top 5 leagues in Europe play 1,826 games. There's only 125 games played in the Champions League. The Champions League is where the money is. You got to play more games in the Champions League. And you're going to need more money because you're going to lose a lot. You got to have new revenue. And I think that's the thing that maybe we're forgetting at times when we talk about this stuff. You're going to get revenue back that you would have normally had when you have fans back in the buildings. You got to find new revenue to make up for the losses. Just getting revenue back doesn't make up for losses unless you're able to increase it, which maybe you can in some cases. MLS can increase it by selling more players. That's something they haven't done a ton of. That's a new revenue stream that they can take more advantage of. Got to have the clubs who can buy, and they've got to have money to buy, and that's part of the problem, but that can happen. But you got to have more revenue streams. That's why MLS and Liga MX doing things makes a lot more sense now. Leagues Cup expanding to be a bigger competition makes a lot more sense now. MLS teams and Liga MX teams joining Copa Sudamericana, Copa Libertadores, makes a lot more sense now because it's new revenue streams. You got to find new revenue streams going forward. I think Champions League expands in 2024. As soon as they can do it, it expands. There's going to be more Champions League games played. Also, Agnelli said, we can look at the governance aspect in terms of financial management, and that is we've always had a profit and loss approach. So we're looking at total turnover. We're looking across. We want to really focus on balance sheet management and value creation. I can give you some examples there. A revision of the transfer system, a collective bargaining agreement with the players that will leave us with the tools in order to operate in a moment of crisis. Like a force majeure clause, right? There you go. Like, that's kind of funny that now you've got Andrea Agnelli talking about wanting a collective bargaining agreement and creating a force majeure clause when that's what MLS is arguing about. The other financial thing that jumped out to me beyond the Barcelona stuff, which is the same, Victor Font, another one of the presidential candidates, talked about it. He's like, look, I'm not going to lie to you. We're not going to spend a whole bunch of money. We can't. They're going to try to restructure the wage bill. They want to be clear with the members. They've got to change players or current players reducing their salaries. These are all reasonable things. I mean, that's what they're going to have to do. They don't have the money to figure it out. They've got to refinance the debt. They've got to take the short-term debt and stretch it out, which means they're going to pay more. And because of their credibility and because Barcelona is too big to go away, they can probably get away with that. They're going to end up paying more, but they're going to be able to save themselves in the short term. Barca, we know, is a problem, but this is affecting everybody else too. France. And France is one we've talked a lot about. They've lost their broadcast rights right now. They have very little money coming in. They're looking at, you talk about that 6.5 to 8.5 million euro. France, according to L'Equipe, could be 1.3 billion this season of those losses. It's that bad. Not long ago, they were predicting 800 million euro. They're going to be way past that now. You got no fans. You got no broadcast payments since October. Right now, you can't get anybody to come in and pay for the broadcast rights. Telefoot is still carrying the games for free right now because nobody else has come in and bought the rights, and they don't want to just not have the games on TV, so they're kind of stuck there. Canal Plus was like, no, we're not giving you more money. We're just going to take what we have right now. We'd actually like to renegotiate that with you. We don't even want to pay you what we're paying you. It's horrible. So France is in a bad, bad way, and I don't know how they fix that without broadcast money. But Dundee United in Scotland, who just got promoted to the Premiership in Scotland, their supporters just voted. Their supporters foundation, they have 1,000 members. They just voted 98.42% yes to give the club £100,000 of a cash injection. An immediate $60,000 is going to them now. All membership fees and donations gathered until they get to that six-figure sum. They already gave them £100,000 in June of 2020. This is the Supporters Foundation. The club offered sincere thanks to foundation members and said the money will enhance our ability to get through the current situation and help us come back stronger. This is after the manager, the staff, the players all agreed to pay cuts. Like, they're up against it to the point that they're asking their Supporters Foundation for six figures for a second time to keep going.
In 7 months.
Yeah. I mean, these are real problems. These are real things that it's rough. It's not going to go away overnight. It's not going to go away the first day that fans are back in the buildings. It's going to take time. There is going to be a lingering effect here. But the sooner you can get back to bringing in the normal revenues of game day for these clubs, the sooner you can start to even plan what it is to recover the lost revenues. Because you don't even know what it looks like right now. You're just trying to hang on. And then you can figure out, okay, now we've stabilized. Now we've got this coming back in. Now we know we can do this. Okay, cool. Now how do we go make up all the money we lost? How do we go pay these debts that we had to take 8 loans out like Leicester, and we've already promised this money here and this money here? How do we now find new money? That's where it stands. And that's one of the scary points. So there's going to be a lot of talk about this stuff in Europe because we're going to hear a lot about that here. There's a lot of talk about this stuff in South America. There's a lot of talk about this in the African clubs, the Asian clubs. There's talk about it in Mexico, and there's some talk about it in MLS. But, you know, when there's conversations about renegotiating things in MLS, these are the realities in other places. MLS is structured different, yes. You have some owners who are very rich, yes. Not all of them, some of them, not all of them. And you got to just figure it out and move on because any kind of a stoppage is going to be worse. I think the Scottish clubs are in worse shape. I think the French clubs are in worse shape because they just stopped.
Yeah.
And I think with France, it absolutely affected the relationships with the broadcasters. And now they're paying for it. With Scotland, they didn't finish that season out. They had to give money back. They had to figure things out. I think those are the two that stopped and did not finish their seasons. Those are the two that are hurting the worst. So any kind of a stoppage of play, you can delay it. You can start later. Starting in April's fine. But if you don't play because you're going to argue about how to divide up the money, you're going to do so much more damage in the long run that you can't do right now. So hopefully all the progress is good. Sounds like there's a deadline of the 29th, according to the CBA. At least the league says that. I hope we have good news by the end of the week because these things are scary to me. These things are scary around the world, and I don't want MLS to be that scary. They're built to be able to survive this stuff. I have good faith that they will, and I hope they don't do too much damage in surviving it because they got to work together and they got to figure this out. It's just where the game is going right now. It's hard times because of these financial situations. You got to hold on, and you got to give yourself every opportunity to grow when you can get back to normal. I think MLS can hit the ground running faster than most because of that ownership, because of some of the things that are in place, but that doesn't happen if they have a stoppage of play. Because I think France and Scotland show you how damaging that can be.
When you come to that absolute full stop, any kind of momentum, if that's the word you want to use, any kind of regular day-to-day operation and trying to work through a problem, you hit a stoppage, all of that ceases. We've seen it in other sports, how difficult it is when you're in a stoppage for both sides to want to sit there and get back to the table. And it's an opportunity for Major League Soccer to continue being one of those sports that has momentum here in the U.S. marketplace. And you think of everything that falls by the wayside. It's all the TV contracts, all the TV revenue, all the ad revenue, all of these different things that you can't afford to lose right now would go by the wayside, and they'd be off to the side while you're trying to figure out when you would be getting back to the table if there's a stoppage. You can't afford to do that right now.
Yeah, it's too rough. Austin's secondary kit is out. It's white. That's no shock. It's got the green with the 3 stripes on the shoulder that they started using last year. Okay, it's got some green trim on the bottom. As far as white jerseys go, it's fine. It's a white jersey. It's, come on. Do a different color shorts, please. Please, 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 please. They're doing black shorts with the green and black stripes, right?
Yeah.
Do green shorts with this, please.
Yes, do green shorts.
Begging you, Adidas, do green shorts with this. Do green socks. Don't just do all white. You can do green shorts. I don't think anybody else in the league does. Portland, I think Portland might have green shorts. Okay, you can wear the black shorts when you play Portland. You're not going to have color clashes. Do green shorts, please. Please, please, please. Begging.
Yes.
Por favor.
Uh-huh.
New York Red Bulls have added Tom Edwards on loan from Stoke City. I have more MLS stuff. We'll talk about it on Stoppage Time today at 2 o'clock. We'll talk about everything else tomorrow on the show. A lot of games today. Manchester United hosts Sheffield United. Everton hosts Leicester in a big one at 3:15. The relegation battle between Fulham and Brighton, that's at 2:30. You've got Chelsea, Thomas Tuchel, hosting Wolves at 1. You've got Burnley and Aston Villa at 1. Copa del Rey, you've got Barcelona going to Rayo Vallecano. It could get intriguing. You've got Juventus playing second division Spal in the Coppa Italia. You've also got Atalanta hosting Lazio. That could be a fun one to watch. A lot of games. ESPN Plus has got a lot of them. Fanatis has a lot of them too. fntz.co/soccer down here. We'll be back tomorrow. If you can join us for Stoppage Time at 2, facebook.com/929thegame, please do so. And we'll see you in the morning. Mucho plati, y'all.
Mucho plati, y'all.